We have mentioned this to start the last few shows, but it's starting to get a little bit more tangible, a little bit more real when you can say a week from Saturday. So that's where we are. Only one more show. Think of it this way, folks. One more Wednesday show after this one between us and football on the field from Dublin, Ireland, Florida State, Georgia Tech, an ACC game, of course, to open the season. Welcome into Seminoles Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. Comments and questions are welcome. Super Chat contributions are appreciated. Of course, George is here from the Renegade Report. 1 year anniversary in the books. George, congratulations.
That's right, man. Going a little bit longer than that. We started in December of 2022 as a website and doing like audio only stuff, but the very first ever live video podcast was August 12th of last year, and we just had the 1 year anniversary of that. So with James and Chris, they were there for me. You've been a big part of it. It's been a whole lot of fun. We came a long ways in the past year. So yeah, pumped up to be 10 days away, as you said. A week from Saturday. I didn't really think about the fact we only have one show left. So I guess next week can be the Georgia Tech preview, and that'll be a lot of fun. Next thing you know, we'll be coming back and talking about a marvelous victory for Florida State over there in Ireland.
Most likely 12.5-point favorite. So Vegas basically says, as you would expect, Florida State's a big favorite, but not some gargantuan, ridiculous favorite. So Georgia Tech has some hope there. They played well at the end of last season. Of course, they were the beneficiary of Mario Cristobal's brain freeze last year, which got him to a bowl game. They played Georgia really well at the end of the year, played within basically a score in that game, hung around, never really threatened too seriously, and then they won a bowl game against UCF. So Georgia Tech turning in their best season in quite some time, and we'll talk a little Georgia Tech in a few minutes, coming off 7-6. Again, comments and questions, we appreciate them. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, including this one. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. You will not notice a thing, and you contribute here to the Voice of College Football. Following you, following Chris, following James, following some other Jen, following some other Florida State people. I can't think of anybody else. It's not like I'm out there hunting down Florida State people. You were the first four that come to mind. Logan Robinson would be another. But it seemed like I was recognizing today in particular, just photo after photo after video, players do span this guy. I'm noticing all these different guys walking into the facility, on the practice field, going through drills. And I thought, yeah, they have to get a little bit more serious than everyone else, because it's almost go time and it's about to get real. But some intel from camp, anything that you've picked up here in the last few days?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, a lot of the hay's in the barn. They've already had, I think, 16 practices now, a couple scrimmages. I believe they were in shells yesterday, no pad, not even shells. I don't know exactly what the dress code. I think they just had like their jersey on and pants and stuff, and no pads. I'm not sure exactly what it was there, but Mike Norvell was complaining. It seemed like the guys were a little bit faster in their light digs that they had on there, but just so fired up. Pretty much everything's locked in. I was talking to you about it in the production meeting. I could pretty much go through both sides of the ball, who we expect to start and things like that. But there are a few question marks, wide receiver, who's going to be that second wide receiver to really step up. Linebacker is a bit of a question mark. But overall, you kind of talked about Georgia Tech's success there. And really just kind of remembering how that Georgia game, I was kind of sweating a little bit. I actually went back and watched that. I feel a lot better after watching it. If you go back and watch the actual first half of that game, it was some weird fluke, like turnovers and things, like not taking anything away from Georgia Tech. But it wasn't like they were driving the ball on Georgia and then turning around and stopping them so much, as it was just one of those games. And Georgia just kind of took over in the second half. I went back and looked at some of their recruiting just to get an idea of what their talent level is. They've recruited 6 blue chips in the last 4 recruiting cycles, which is what kind of people look at when they're looking at your blue chip ratio and things of that nature. I'm not sure if it was the 22 or the 23 class. They had 0 blue chips in the entire class. So there is a really large talent disparity here. That said, they return their quarterback in KES King. When you play a team that wants to run and pound the football, they're going to limit opportunities, especially if they can get those first downs and can get some things going running. And I'm sure Brent Key will have some nice stuff, scripted up there for the first half. They're going to limit your snaps, and that takes away from your talent disparity. The least snaps you have, the least it would be an FSU's advantage there. So, you said it. It's not guaranteed. We won't throw anything out, but feel pretty damn good about FSU's chances against Georgia Tech. And, we can get into it. We can talk about all the positions, talk about the matchups as much as we can fit into an hour.
KES King, in addition to throwing the ball downfield at 62%, 27 touchdowns, 16 picks, and maybe a lot of people remember him from his days at Texas A&M. I certainly do. He was the starting quarterback there as well. He won the job one particular year, must have been 2021, and he got hurt and gave away to Zach Calzada there. Kind of fell out of favor. Not that he did anything wrong in particular, I'm saying, just quarterback battle and didn't like his situation, makes his way to Georgia Tech, but he can move around a little bit as well. 10 touchdowns on the ground and ran for about 800 yards. So he's definitely a dual threat guy for sure. James Coleman checking in.
Give it to the damn fullback.
James, what's going on?
Bit of a mute
Jamie with us.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
All right, what's
Now
going
we
on?
can. Sounds like it's a bit rough. Give it another go, James.
All right.
Dang, then when he said all right, it came through perfectly. StreamYard's been acting a bit funny here the last couple of days. Tighten up stuff up. Y'all help us with
I
this,
should have told him just to say something else. I didn't mean for him to back out and come back in, but that's okay. We'll see if we can
That's
get
like
it better.
the fix. There's a little
Let's
bit of
see.
inside baseball for you guys about podcasting with these things. Like, it's kind of like when you reset the computer, out and back in usually fixes it. So what's up,
It
James?
usually does. The reset. Oh, there goes James.
Third tries the charm.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm looking at Georgia Tech from last year, trying to think when I saw them play. It wasn't a whole lot of football. Maybe their most impressive win, they were an 11-point underdog against North Carolina. They beat the Tar Heels and beat Syracuse, beat Virginia. That was by far the best team that they beat last year, besides Miami, I guess, North Carolina, Miami. And that was an ugly win against Miami, but they were given a gift and they took advantage. So they also had to pull off like 3 ridiculous plays after they got the fumble to pull out that game against the Canes and Hard Rock.
No doubt.
All right, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yes,
got
yeah.
you. What's going on?
Not much, man. Just happy to be here, guy. Football season. Gotta love it. It's right around the corner.
We are just about here. How much have you been able to get out to camp?
When they were here, I've gone to 4 practices this year.
Give us your take.
We still have connection issues. Dang it.
All right, George, we will, again, I was just going to say about Georgia Tech. I watched their bowl game. I saw some of the Georgia game. They lost a 1-score game to Louisville. I think that was a Friday night game. And I caught a lot of that ball game as well. Those are the games that come to mind. And then I remember seeing that they were playing that ugly game against Miami. I was not watching that game. I was watching whatever primetime games were big that night. But then as soon as I saw that score flip from like 20 to 16 Miami to double zeros, and you see Georgia Tech 23-20, I was like, whoa, what happened?
All
And
of
then I was
America
scurrying all over the
over
place to
there
look,
at the end. It was
to see
hilarious.
what happened.
Some
Man.
FSU guy, man, posted that shit for 200 days straight. And James, you're coming in loud and clear, so I'll shut up.
Now I remember that game. I was watching it because our game at FSU had. I want to say, is that when we played Duke? Anyway, one of the times it had just got done. I was sitting there. I'm like, you know what? I'm watching it. Okay. they done lost this game. All they got to do is take a knee, or at worst, they kick a field goal. Game's going to be over. There's no way they can win. I go use the bathroom. I come back, and people are sending me the memes of the center crying. And I'm like, come on, man. It's Georgia Tech. I get it. Close game. The emotions do run a little high, but, man, that's a bit much to be crying over a win. And I looked at the score, and I thought, ESPN's been messing up with the graphics lately. So I just figured they put the wrong score. And then I realized that wasn't the score that I went into the bathroom looking at. And then, oh, my God, I was crying laughing. And then Miami does probably out of all fan bases, I'm going to give them props. They do the best with spaces. Like they have 48-hour Twitter spaces. Like I don't know how these people, there's not enough content to talk about that much, that often, but it was all kind. I mean, it was just to hear how the people were talking. It was crazy. But the one thing I do love about Miami fans is regardless of all of that, they still feel like they're going to be in the college football playoff. Every year they got to deal with that. But every year we know they're going to come in with more pride and be prepared. So I like it.
Confidence knows no bounds. Like, man, I get it. Like you've got the talent all there and stuff, but like 11, 12 wins is a different level. Like I think you're just going straight from this to that. Like we had our 10-win season. I'm predicting 9-3 with 8-4 more likely than 10 wins, but we'll see. Honestly, if they did, it'd be the best thing for the conference, for our schedule, for everybody. If they are ranked, if you get a Florida State and a Miami in the playoff, how cool would that be? That's what it was supposed to be from the very beginning, but I'll believe it when I see it. They're gonna drop a couple. The mental game is the hardest thing, going from the end of Jimbo and through Taggart and what Norvell did there. You can call it culture, you want to call it whatever you want. Like the mental headspace of building a winner and being consistent and all those things. It's not something that happens just by bringing in, a senior quarterback. And I just don't know that he's that guy anyways with all his turnovers, which is what worries me. But again, this ain't the Miami show, but yeah, my 2 cents.
They don't have to deal with Clemson or NC State. Those are the two possible tough opponents that they avoid in the ACC. James, 4 practices. What did you see?
I saw a lot of, again, remnants of 2022. So except for I think with a better offensive line, I think the offensive line and the top 10 guys there, the 2 deep, is pretty impressive. Across the board, just the size in general, the guys are pretty impressive. I think the running game with Roy Dale and the amount of patience that he has, and just the different backs that can do different things. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the spark. One of the things that I think a lot of people also, just because they're not familiar with packages. They just see things like, okay, well, here's my starting running back, right? So that's the guy who's going to get 65 to 70 reps, and that's just not how this game works. But they could go into 20 personnel, put Toa Feely, Sam Singleton, Mekhi Danzy, Jalen Lucas. You could put them at a slot receiver, and you can still have a running back there. And now all of a sudden, your running back, your wide receiver, your quote unquote receiving threats that everybody's so down on, Toa Feely has some of the best hands on the team. So now you can create mismatch problems with how deep they are in the backfield and the type of running backs that they possess. You've got that going for you, and then also the defense. A lot of people, again, only look at, oh my God, I heard Paul Feinbaum, and I get it. We lost quite a few guys to the NFL without looking at the fact of the snap counts. We averaged 25 players, I think, with over 40 plus snap counts or more snap counts. So like they rotate a lot of guys in the game. So I think our depth is going to be great, but this is a team of people who don't have the name recognition that you're used to, which is why I compared them to 2022. Remember, 2022, nobody thought that Johnny Wilson would probably be working with the Philadelphia Eagles as a rookie. So like and that's kind of where we're at right now. A bunch of talent at wide receiver that we don't know about, a bunch of guys with potential. Now, potential just means you haven't done anything. but at the same time, there's no need to be overly down on what Florida State has. I can easily see it from what I'm seeing. I see a floor of a 10-win team.
It's also one thing to be tagged with having potential and being some kind of 5-star that's been on campus for 4 years, who's a senior, who still has potential, but just hasn't and has been given every opportunity and everybody's just waiting for it, versus just, hey, you have potential. You haven't been given any opportunities. This is your first opportunity. And for most of these guys, especially when you point to the wide receiver position, like George and I sliced it up last week or the last 2 weeks, and George gave us the rundown of all the paranoia out there. It's not a deal that these guys have been failures. They just are young. They have yet to be given the opportunity, and this is the time to shine.
And they're going up against some of the best DBs in the nation, like in practice. So like even with the practice reports, I'm like, guys, AZ, draft grade. Finchero Cypress, draft grade. Shaheem Brown, draft grade. Earl Little Jr., draft grade. Your D line, draft all 4 of your D linemen, draft grades. Like you're going up against an NFL defense, and you haven't done anything. Like somebody in the group chat that I'm in, they brought up, man, all of Georgia Tech's wide receiver core pales in comparison to our guys. I'm like, yeah, everybody came back. Keon didn't come. Like we lost our 4 of our top 5 receivers are in the NFL on an NFL roster right now. That's Benson, a guy who was with the Patriots. I forgot a tight end. I can't think of his name right now. Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. I mean, those are 4 of your top 5 targets. Murlock is back. Ja'Kai Douglas is back. But these guys weren't your focal points of your offense. If you lose your 3 top actual receiving targets, you should have a bunch of guys in there who don't have over 500 yards. I'm sorry. We weren't Washington. We weren't throwing the ball 1,000 times. And so I think that bodes well. In a world, if Malik Benson does what Keon Coleman did, has over 700 yards and 11 touchdowns, is Malik Benson a bust, or was he good? Because I mean, that got a guy to be the #1 pick for the Buffalo Bills. If we have a guy that matches what Johnny Wilson's production was in 10 games of playing, then I think we did fine. I think we just have to step back and stop looking to be subpar. Like, we're fine. If our wide, like, it's supposed to be a battle. And the funny thing is the minute our wide receivers do well in a practice and somebody reports it, the first thing everybody does is, oh, maybe that means our defense isn't as good. Like, I don't get Florida. I'm starting to not. I'm not anti-Florida State fan. I don't understand it. We cried during Taggart. We cried during the latter half of Jimbo. We cried during the first 2 years of Norvell, and we've done nothing but win the last 2 years. And we're going into year 3, and there's nothing that they've shown us that shows that we should have a trajectory of going back to 3 wins or even going below 500. But FSU fans talk as if they've been defeated, and we haven't even played a game yet.
When they hear us, whoever, the Nolecast, anybody out there talk about the wide receivers and where it is versus last year, and there's not necessarily names out there, I think it's PTSD. They think we're going back to 2020 and 2021 and where there's no names in these things, but they just got to understand the talent is there. It just has to be given an opportunity. And again, we talked about this last night. I think y'all even talked about it on Chris's show the other day. Like, if you go back to last year at spring, before Keon Coleman got here, I mean, it was the same thing. You were talking about Darion Williamson and Kentron Portier. Those were your options for your other wide receiver out there with Johnny Wilson. Compared to that, I mean, you pluck Keon Coleman out, and the whole, like, the wide receiver room is on a completely, other level when you look at talent. You're not going to make the top list as far as wide receivers because of that. So when they look at David Hale's list and he's got Florida State at number 8 or number 9 or whatever at wide receiver, they freak out. They go to pull their hair out. Like, there's only one team, maybe 2, possibly, that has more wide receiver talent than Florida State. Georgia Tech, like I was saying earlier, they signed 6 blue chips the past 4 years. Just give it time. Just take a deep breath. Norvell is he's gonna scheme some guys open. Somebody's gonna make a big play, gain that confidence, and it's gonna come. And everything we've heard, I've heard from talking to James or Chris or else, Malik Benson has really turned that corner. Like, we've got somewhere to start there. We have an electric wide receiver. And between Hakeem Williams, who hasn't been as consistent as you would hope, and Kentron Portier, you've got Jalen Brown. There's so many guys battling out for that position that I have 100% faith Norvell's going to find somebody. Somebody will rise to the occasion, and I can't wait to see it. I'm ready for this thing to get kicked off and see what it's going to look like. Roydell Williams, James did a great breakdown on some of Trey Benson's NFL film, and talking about his time at Florida State. As great as he was, he's still got a lot to learn and a long ways to go. He wasn't the best as far as being patient and setting up blocks. He's kind of the anti-Le'Veon Bell, more James Wilder Jr. Just smash it up in there. So Roydell Williams really has a good mix of what Rayshawn had, what Trey Benson had in his top end, what Lawrence Toafili has in his ability to catch passes out of the backfield and things of that nature. I think people are kind of underrating the explosivity of the run game and what it can be as the focal point of the offense. And even if that's just for one game and all of a sudden the passing game springs off of it, just have faith, y'all. It's not going to be the end of the world. We may not have the Bednarik, or not the Bednarik Award. Oh, man. I can't even. Bolitnikov. We may not have the Bolitnikov Award winner. He's a Knoll, so I had to remember that and say that right. But we're going to be just fine at wide receiver. I think we'll end up having somewhere around 3,000 yards out of DJU. Maybe only 2,500 of it is passing, but this offense is going to be great.
The other thing too I'll say about DJU, and before that, people say, like what George just said, like, oh man, Mike Norvell, we're going to have to rely on Mike Norvell scheming it up. That's what the coaches are supposed to do. Like, if you think that he's a good schemer, then that has to balance into your wide receiver, your chart. There's no way that you believe Florida State has the talent that they have, and you're saying that they're bottom half of the conference in wide receiver. Now, again, without putting it in context, if you want to just say they're bottom half because they don't have the guys that are producing, then that's a little bit different. But when you're looking at recruiting, whether it be transfer portal or in high school recruiting, and you're looking at what they got out there, I promise you, there's not 10 other teams in the conference that are saying, I'll take my guys over Florida State's guys.
Georgia Tech would have crawled over glass.
Especially if you believe that the coach can scheme it up. But backing off of that, a lot of people talk about DJU. Now, one of the things that I think Jordan Travis did a tremendous job of was not turning the ball over. He was 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's insane to even think about it. DJU, I believe the last 2 years has been 20 to 21 and 6 to 7 interceptions. If Mike Norvell can shave off 2 of those interceptions and add 3 more touchdowns, you're talking about a guy who's on Jordan Travis production level. Now, before you say, well, James, what is that? That's crazy. Well, as far as cumulative yards, Jordan Travis finished 46 on the season. DJU finished 53rd. Jordan Travis finished 46 on the season with 3 guys who are in the NFL that he threw to. 4 if you include the running back. Oregon State's top wide receiver transferred last year right along with DJU, and Martinez is at Miami. So, like, if you want to say that Florida State had better talent last year, then one could deduce that DJU should be, and that Mike Norvell knows how to scheme it up, then one should be a little bit more optimistic about DJU if you believe that Florida State has better talent than Oregon State, and you believe that Mike Norvell can dial it up. You can't say those things, that FSU has more talent than Oregon State and Mike Norvell can dial it up, and then still use DJU, who numerically isn't that far off from what you had last year, is going to just be a bust. Like, it's just, I think sometimes all of us, we talk so much through social media that we forget what we're actually talking about. And we're just saying things just to sound different or unique. And I think, from right now, if he stinks it up against Georgia Tech, then you change the narrative. But there's nothing right now to show Florida State fans that they should be in a panic. They should be in panic mode. Will they go 13-0? Man, a lot got to go right for you to go 13-0. Hell, a lot had to go right this year for us to go 13-0 when you lost your quarterback, with 2.5 games left on the season. But I think Florida State should, again, I feel like I'm weird, and I hope I'm right. I think I'm going to be right, because if I'm not, I'm probably going to be the only person that everybody attacks, because I'm one of the few, outside of George and Chris, so we're one of the few people who are actually optimistic about what the season is going to look like.
And some of that perception about DJ versus Jordan Travis might be where they came from, meaning where they came from in terms of expectations. DJU is coming from a 5-star level with all these expectations that he's just going to step in for Trevor Lawrence and be Trevor Lawrence. Jordan Travis was walking into the Florida State situation as a transfer from Louisville, and he looked like a running back trying to play quarterback initially, and he improved, got better and better and better. So they arrived at the end of their careers in different ways.
They want to judge Jordan Travis off of the ultimate quarterback he became under Mike Norvell, Tony Tokar's, Alex Atkins tutelage. They don't want to judge, Jordan Travis, his early career, where he came from and everything else. But like you said, since DJU was that guy, they hold it against him. But when you look at the evidence, as a sophomore, as a junior, he's what was keeping all that crap together. Like when he left Clemson, it killed him. We saw it. Like they stunk last year. It all fell apart. I believe somebody did a stat over like the past 3 seasons. They've had 14 games that were, quote unquote, past a certain threshold of quarterback play on the plus or minus type scale. 9 of those games were DJU, and only 5 of them were from Klubnik. And it's just, it just goes to show you any way you want to look at it. The dude is a damn good quarterback and has been for quite a while. 3-to-1 touchdown ratio is nothing to sneeze on. James and me are always saying it.
I also want to
expect Mike Norvell and them not to be able to do anything with him, to be able to improve him with the coaching he got. We talked about it on the roast. Dabo Swinney had 5 of his cousins on his offensive staff. People who never, it's nuts.
Well, Trevor Lawrence and Clemson also benefited from having incredible wide receiver play. Clemson's wide receivers have been down. So I'm not even going to bash K Klubnik. They haven't had the wide receivers that they had when they made that incredible run with Dabo. Now, the running back was actually really, really good. And that's who actually really was killing us and almost killed us last year in the passing game and the running game. But the other thing, too, is Clemson had 2 major departures that really hurt them. And it's still hurting them to this day right now. They had 2 co-OCs. One handled all the recruiting in Tampa, where he was getting all the top wide receivers, and the other one was the X's and O guy, Tony Elliott, and I can't remember the other guy's name for the life of me. But one ended up being the coach at Virginia, one ended up being the coach at South Florida. When those 2 guys left, you saw a marked dip in Clemson's production on offense. Like that's where I think again it's an argument, but it's an unfair argument. Like DJU had to have transitions that not very many people had to go through. I believe if he had both of those guys, you would have a little bit of a different flavor to Clemson's offense. And I think a lot of it had to do with the most popular, one of the phrases I remember in college, the most popular person on campus, whether it's a winning team or a bad team, is the backup quarterback. He's always the life of the party when you're winning, and when you're losing, he's always the hope. They were just, I'll say they were mid in comparison to what they were. And Cade came in and had a great ACC championship. But once people got film on Cade, all of that went out the window. Cade has not been what they thought the DJ replacement would have been, which again, I'm not here to argue all those, to argue for Clemson. I'm here to say, DJ wasn't just bad in the vacuum. There was a lot of things that came along that, again, at the end of the day, they are excuses, but there are things that can, okay, naturally, I can see how the offensive progression could go down when it comes to those manners with coaches that aren't as good. And what Dabo tried to do was he tried to replace 2 really good OCs in-house as opposed to going out-house. And then when he did go out last year, and this would be my defense of K Klubnik, is you actually did hire a good OC, but you didn't let that OC. You wanted him to run the offense that he's not familiar with, which is your Clemson offense, which is why you saw at times Clemson did not look competent on offense.
All fair. I think the issue, the negative connotation that sticks to DJU, people people don't want to accept that the coaching was part of it. They just want to be able to point at something as to why It's not anymore. And they pointed at DJU, and that's just kind of what stuck. But we don't need DJU to be Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson. That's what Clemson needs out of Cade Klubnik, the way that program was set up and that offense, developed over the years, and that's what they had. They couldn't get over the hump with Taj Boyd. We saw that. They got Deshaun, they got Lawrence, and they got over the hump. They went on a crazy run, and they had the coaches, everything together. We don't need DJU to be all that. We need him to be a playmaker, and like I've talked about a lot, 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, however you get there, that's enough to take you a long way. So I'm excited. I think Mike Norvell and his ability to scheme stuff, Tony Tokars and Alex Atkins developing quarterbacks and everything, it's just a bit underrated. If he was going out to USC, if Lincoln Riley would have took him, there would be this, oh shit, DJU is about to do this and do that. But he'll get there. And I think this year will go a long ways. It's going to surprise a lot of people, and hopefully me, James, Chris, and the other supporters out there, Jen, who has been just absolutely in love with DJU from the very beginning, look like we had some sense when it's all said and done.
Florida State football talk right here at the Voice of College Football every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. We appreciate you being here. Follow George at the Renegade Report. Just to let you know at the top of the show that he celebrated his 1-year anniversary over there. So if you're not subscribed, you have missed out for a year, but you don't have to miss out anymore. As somebody once said, you're here now. That's what matters. So get on over there and check it out at the Renegade Report. And of course, Den Media Group with James. James, what's going on over there at Den Media Group?
Yeah, we just hit 6,000 last Friday. We did our giveaway. Adrian won our member giveaway. She actually won both of them. So for the amount of likes and $100, a lady named Julia, who's not a member, but she was just a listener of the show, she won $500. Every time we hit a thousand sub mark, we do a giveaway. Basically 10% of the subs in money. So the next, when we hit 7,000, we'll give away 500 to a random listener, 200 to a member, and then the amount of likes to another member, with the goal of reaching 10,000 subs by the end of the season. So if somehow we get 10,000 before the start of the season, I will give a pair of season tickets away to an FSU fan on the show. But even if not, every Wednesday before a home game, we give away a pair of tickets to the game, so that people can go watch them and get an opportunity to make their arrangements. So we're looking for a great this is my 9th year in media in general. So looking to close this year out with a bang and start off 2010, start that off the right way. So so I'm looking forward to finishing this year strong. So having a good time.
Now that I'm in the Sunshine State, I was hoping that Florida State would throw me a Thursday, Friday, or Monday game, and I'd make the jaunt over there to Tallahassee and take it in. But Saturdays are a little bit too wild here for me.
You got Labor Day.
Boston College's second game of the year.
Oh, is that a Labor Day game?
Yeah, that's on Labor Day.
Oh, maybe we'll make that one. I didn't realize that. How did I not realize that? I think it's because I got wrapped up in the Georgia Tech game and thinking of that being the first game that's usually when they play on Sunday or Monday.
We called your bluff, man. We got to see you at Boston College now, bro. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Bring your equipment. Lot 19. Should be good weather. We'll do podcast all day.
Okay. That's a good deal right there. All right. I got a spot. James has carved out a spot for me. I got some territory over there. Nice. Okay. We'll have to get working on that.
Everybody does it like those guys, man. If you ever get a chance to make it to one of the Den Media Group, MFTK, Sporadic / Dope Talk tailgates, there's nothing like it. You'll never know who you're going to see there. Between Peter Ward, we had Mr. Alford showed up this past year. It's great stuff. Great stuff. Definitely come join us. It's worth the price of admission. That's for damn sure.
Phenomenal. Love it. This team's number 10 in the nation, according to the AP. But as I pointed out to the fine viewers here at the Voice of College Football, that means as much as, I don't know, fill in the blank what it means, because they hit just slightly over 50% of those rankings in the preseason.
Paul
Just slightly
Feinbaum
over
wasn't a big-
just slightly over 50%. Well, the thing about I'm going to defend Feinbaum from this standpoint. I'm going to defend
don't
him
do
from this
that.
standpoint.
Don't do that.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, George, because 20 out of the last 21 years, somebody who's in the preseason top 10 has finished out of the rankings. So I actually posted a video yesterday saying, who's that going to be? My targets were Notre Dame and Penn State, but I get it. So anybody is going to sound ridiculous predicting any one of those 10 teams to finish completely unranked.
You're operating under the assessment that he believes what he said. Like it was not, that was a complete petty WWE. You wrote a book,
Probably
313 Reasons Why We Hate Florida State.
Let me put it this way. Yeah, maybe I'm not defending Feinbaum. I'm just defending the process of trying to make an outlandish pick because we know the history is telling us that somebody in those 10 spots is not going to finish ranked. And when you look at those 10 teams, it seems ridiculous to think that one of them is not going to finish ranked. But this is what happens every year. Actually, I went to, and then the video I posted today was the unranked teams that finish in the top 10. Do you realize in 2022, half of the top 10, the final top 10, were teams that were unranked to start the season. And the year before that, 2021, it was 4 out of 10. That's ridiculous. I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but starting with TCU, and there were another 4 in the top 10. That's crazy. So I start throwing out the Iowa States and Virginia Techs of the world. People are going to call me crazy, but I'm just trying to find somebody outside the top 25 that's going to finish in the top 10. It was Missouri last year.
I think if Paul Feinbaum would have kept it to where it was just more of the, he did what you have to do as a talking head. He tried to make it entertaining, and I'm not mad at it per se. It's an easy target. Throw a rock at a hornet's nest, and the hornets are going to come attack you. That's Florida State fan base. It's been happening like that for a minute. It's been like that since before I played. We always feel like everybody's picking on us. But I'll say this: when I was listening to his comments, it just wasn't rooted in anything that could make me believe that he truly believed what he was saying. Like he started off by saying the reason why is that we play Notre Dame and Miami in consecutive weeks, and then he brought up Florida. But then he said, I don't believe Florida is going to be that good of a team. So you're saying Florida State would end unranked off of 2 teams. If Florida State goes 10-2, Florida State will be ranked top 15 with an opportunity to potentially go to the college football playoff. I doubt they'll make it, but they'll have the opportunity. That's just not speaking in good faith. A better argument would have been Florida State's schedule is hard because they play SMU, they play Memphis, 2 teams that were in G5 last year that finished with over 10 wins. You play Clemson, and then you have November where you have Miami and stuff going in. Like those weren't the arguments made. Those would be better arguments that I would have to at least step back and say, you know what, Paul, those are all legitimate gripes and legitimate reasons. And that's not what happened. Now, ironically, SMU's 3 losses were to Power 5 teams, one being Boston College, that Florida State beat. Not saying SMU is not good. I'm just saying those are the facts. And if you mix that in, but even then, if Florida State goes 9-3, they're still going to be ranked. Now, who has a history of if they're not in the college football playoff, they fold, especially in the month of November? One team is not in the top 10, so we can't say anything about Miami. But Notre Dame, when Notre Dame's not in it, they tend to fold. Now, the crazy part is when they in it, they in the playoff. Like when Brian Kelly was doing really, really well, Brian Kelly had them boys good. But when he was bad, he was bad. And I think with the injuries, if you're paying attention to what Notre Dame's having, I think they got 2 of their starting linemen are down. Riley Leonard, again, it's ironic that he brought up DJU in that, but not bring up the fact that Riley Leonard is an exciting quarterback that we're all rooting for and we would like to win. But he is everything that people tried to portray Jordan Travis to be before last season. He is a running back that throws the ball. And I'm not saying that to be hard on him. He doesn't throw it. He's barely over 50% in the games that matter, and he runs a lot. And and he's gutsy and he's gritty. that's what made him fun at Duke to watch. That might not necessarily translate over at Notre Dame, even though they do have a kid that's a burner in Chris Mitchell, who I happen to know because he's a Mandarin Mustang, who's a pretty good FIU transfer that went out there. But again, that's my only gripe and argument about it, is that it's never, in these days, it's a talking point. It's a punchline. And I don't want to say like I'm above those things. I just really like the game of football, and I like good football arguments. And I expect guys who are getting paid millions to make good sports arguments, but that's why I don't watch ESPN, Fox, or a lot of these things outside of game day type things. It's because a lot of these people are just saying stuff to get reactions.
The thing about, he's at the end, he calls into account Mike Norvell's culture, the football team, and pokes fun at the tears from the college football playoffs. As soon as you hear that, you know it's not serious, on top of the points you mentioned. That's why I just, it is what it is. It's like it's Jared Springer. That's what he does, and it's fine. But
like the fan base brings up the college football playoff, and I understand that. But right now, the only time Mike talks about the college football playoff, or any of our players talk about it, is when somebody asks him about it. Mm-hmm. And actually, ironically, yesterday, I believe, or was it? Yeah, it was yesterday. Mike was asked about it on a podcast, and Mike says, "I don't want a team. I don't need this team preparing to right the wrongs from last year. That's not how you win games." Like, if you listen to what these guys are saying, like, none of these guys are crying about what happened last year. Are they mad? Rightfully so. But what I've learned is that every year is a new team. Like, this year's team is not the ACC champions. Last year's team was the ACC champions. Right now, this team has to do something to etch their names in history. And that's the only way winners think. And that's how, one thing I will say Mike Norvell is, regardless of if people like him because he's a rival coach or not, Mike Norvell has proven that he doesn't like losing, and he's a winner. And that's all I got to say about that part.
Well said by both of you. I find the rankings to be interesting. Fortunately, they don't matter. They don't matter for two reasons. Obviously, the playoff committee's rankings matter. And for Florida State, if they win the conference, they don't even have to care about the playoff rankings anymore.
And that's the point that, that's always what Mike Norvell's preached. And he preached the same message, that he preached last year in that interview that James is talking about. You control what you control. And as long as you take care of the winning, there's a path. Well, there's supposed to be a path. There'd been a precedent set for the history of college football, as long as the playoff had been there, et cetera, et cetera. As long as you go undefeated, you win your conference, you're in. Well, that broke. That didn't happen. So yeah, fans were upset. It was a controversy. It was for a reason. There's a reason we hate Kirk Herbstreit and all that mess. But now there is, in fact, a path that you can tell them. You handle everything. You win the ACC. You're in. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. You got an opportunity to go out there and show the world, what you're made of. So that's the good thing about the 12-team playoff. Like, we don't have to worry about that ever again, unless you're 11-1 and you can complain about not getting an extra at-large bid or whatever. But that's a different conversation.
We will talk about football in 2 weeks. That will be fun. It'll be fun to sit down and watch a football game and then talk about it the next Wednesday. And you guys will obviously talk about it much sooner than that. And speaking of which, we will, for a second consecutive year, be honored to have George hosting our post-game show here at the Voice of College Football. So we appreciate that and get the word out on that. So when the score goes final, George will put out the notification and bam, get everybody in here to talk Florida State football, FSU, Georgia Tech. It's noon Eastern. Awesome stuff, guys. Appreciate you being here. You got a good punter as well, I see. He's on the Ray Guy list, which is not that much of a stretch because there's about 50 guys that get on these lists, but 45.5 average last year. He's already preseason All-America Sporting News, Walter Camp, Athlon, All-America. So hopefully he's not punting 66 times this year as he did last year, but maybe a few less punts, but he's a good one.
Not a sexy thing to talk about, but Florida State has Master Mono, the Aussie, just a boomer cannon of a leg. the crazy spin on that ball. Really a weapon for us last year, and I have no doubt he'll be a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised to see that stretch closer to 50 yards. I believe, Fitzgerald is also going to be a Grozo Award nominee, preseason favorite maybe to win that award. A guy who struggled a little bit back in 2022. People forget in that 3-game skid we had. I mean, he missing extra points. All his confidence was gone as he had switched from a 2 to a 3-step or from a 3-step to his 2-step, whatever the case may be. But he got that straightened away and was a beast for us last year, and an absolute weapon. And then you want to look at kick returner. We've got Jalen Lucas back there, who's got, I think he leads the country with 3 kickoff returns for touchdowns returning. He's working some at punt returner as well, along with Deuce Spann back at kick returner and the different guys. Can't remember the other guys they had at punt return. Maybe a Blake Benson working a little bit of punt return as well. Mike Norvell puts a big time emphasis on special teams. Coach Papuchis, who is, one of the best coaches in all of college football with what he does with the defensive ends, to also be coaching special teams, along with Mike Norvell, who's very hands-on. It's a third of the game. It's going to be a big difference. And Florida State hasn't had special teams like this since, 2013. It's been a long time. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the special teams, the defense, and then, of course, the offense. We're going to figure that out. But, yeah, a lot of fun.
James, one more time on Den Media Group and what people can find over there.
Den Media Group, again, football season, a lot more football related content. We're actually going to try to follow the Mark Rogers mode here. We're gonna have a channel come out of our channel, but you'll see the previews of it on Den Media Group. We got Mandarin University, so we're following one of the top programs in the state of Florida with 3 top 50 players for 2025 on there. So you'll get a chance to see little documentary style stuff with those kids as they go through a lot of different challenges for this upcoming season. Should be cool. Little drama. But again, it's just kind of living vicariously through them young men. On Tuesdays, we'll have Mondays, we'll have obviously Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, Big Games BS. But we'll also have my breakdown of the previous game. So we play on the 23rd, so that means on the 25th, for members, you'll get a link, and we'll be able to watch me break down the previous game just from a football mind. You can bring your questions, we can answer stuff, and then we'll post it live on the YouTube. Minus obviously there's no live interaction with that one. And then on Tuesdays, we'll break down, starting next week actually, we will break down the next opponent. So we will break down we'll start breaking down Georgia Tech this coming Tuesday on Den Media Group, and we'll just talk about it and just you can ask questions. Again, this is the time to ask questions and try to figure out what we can do and what we're matching up with. It's a little more difficult when you're going off of film from last year because some of those guys aren't there. But luckily, a lot of, at least on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of Georgia Tech's production returns. So, yeah, I mean, just good stuff. Football season's here. More content, more FSU stuff I'll be doing, and just, again, look forward to trying to grow the subscriptions and the membership levels.
Yeah, quarterback and top 2 runners, top 2 receivers with 88 combined catches back for Georgia Tech. Renegade Report, George.
Yeah, man, before I start bragging on myself, definitely get over there, get over to the media group. I can't wait to see the Mandarin U thing come out. I'm going to be really tuned into that. Holler at me if there's anything I can do to help you with that, as always. But if you want to learn about football and kind of, take it to the next level with X's and O's, watch his film reviews. He's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, how he does, chemistry and not chemistry, whatever he does. I can't even say it. But he really can teach you, like when he's talking about 20 and 21 personnel, you can learn that, that's just how many running backs and tight ends it is. 13, that's 1 and that's 3 tight ends. You can learn that kind of stuff, and it really helps me out. I learned a lot from him talking to him. So get over there and do that. And obviously the book bag drive and all the stuff he gives it back. Like he deserves all the praise, and I wouldn't be where I am without him and Chris, and of course Mark as well. But we're going to be going on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays with the Renegade Rundown. Sunday we'll be moving our time probably back closer to noon Eastern. Get those kind of just recap of the game. Get a good, after a rewatch, get in there and break everything down and looking forward. As far as Saturday, Like Mark said, we're going to be doing the post-game show, but to give a little something for the people over at the Renegade Report, we're probably going to do some members-only live stream. So I'll go ahead and announce this here. It'll be the first time I've announced it. We're not making it to Ireland, so for the Georgia Tech game, we will have a members-only watch-along party there for the whole game. So it may be only audio only for the majority of it, but if you don't want to listen to the ESPN nonsense, you can cut that off and listen to us talk about the game and sync up with us and have a good time and enjoy the party. We're at 2,545 subscribers. Just trying to make it to 5,000. That's our big goal this year. So yeah, that's it, man. Oh, also the Renegade Roast on Mondays. I can't forget that. Jen and Tiny Hat just had on Zach Smith this past Monday, and they roasted the heck out of Dabo Sweeney and his 5 cousins, and a lot of Miami stuff too. So definitely go check that out. And the roast will be continuing on Mondays. That's going to be a lot more fun now that they've got some different games to talk about, and we get to act on some of that stuff. Some of the crap they talked, we'll have people on to defend their team. Zach's going to come back. He said Miami's going to beat Florida 40-7, and he's a Florida grad. So if that happens, or he's going to come back on, because him and Jen had a pretty good disagreement on that. So just a lot of fun, and we appreciate everybody that supported us. And we've got some big time VIP, like big time guests we're working on getting on hopefully here in the next month. I think it'll be really awesome for people to watch. So just stay tuned, and hopefully we'll get to see you guys in person in Boston College or the Memphis game, something like that. But yeah, man, just keeping on going, living the dream.
I like it. All right, George, appreciate you holding things down here for us on Wednesday night. And everybody head on over to the Renegade Report every day. All right, George, have a good night. Good to see you. We'll make it back here next Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Go Noles.